Hello friends, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Rocky Outcrop, this is the Rocky Outcrop channel. We're all Rocky Outcropticians together. Welcome to the family if this is your first time joining us. So let's take a look at Bitcoin together. Thank you so much for joining me today, by the way. Really mutual appreciate it. We've made it past 500 subscribers and I'll be talking a bit about what we're going to sort of do to celebrate that or whatever at the very end of the video. But just for now, let's start off looking at the prices and where we are. So we're currently seeing prices coming in at 7,495. A bit out of breath here at the minute actually as I'm speaking. Have to get that back. Okay, and I thought we'd start off by looking at the monthly chart, just because take a little bit of a broader view, then we'll go down the time frames a little bit and see what's been going on in the more recent price action, so to speak, and see what we could be sort of coming up with in the near future. But I just wanted to start off on the monthly because we're coming towards the end of the month here, and it's a good opportunity to do that. I suppose the date today, the 24th of April, of course. So where do we see the prices having come to, and where all that so far in the monthly time frame? And just looking here is an initial snapshot of things. Looking at if I just look at the price action alone, you can see that we're above the 21 moving average here on the monthly, which is a good place to be, of course, because looking back in time, being above this is a bullish thing, and being below it is a bearish thing. Of course, we've not set in this candle yet, and we could be in around this area where it would be very easy for it. We've not gone very far past it, sorry. So it could be easy enough for it to turn around again. We've not set anything in stone quite yet, but it would be lovely to see over the period of the next couple of months us staying above this yellow 21 EMA and trying to move towards the upside. Now, of course, different people use different numbers, and it's all good. Here's what Peter Brandt will be looking at, for instance, at the minute, because he likes the 18. So he's just saying that we're actually just below that right now. So if you want to sort of take his sort of attitude about things, then what would you be looking at in terms of the price? Just out of curiosity, well, that 7,500 number will be what he's looking at, and could be, of course, what you're looking at too. But it's just this general idea of a monthly trend, a moving average style indicator that we could look to and say, hey, how are we doing in relation to that? And that's currently coming in right about where we are now. So that's cool. That opens up a few questions for us as we look towards the end of the month, and hopefully will give us a bit of context, going into the next month, and that's good to have. And sticking the Fibonacci's just back on real quick, well, we know that there's these two here kind of on top of each other, and they're the ones that we look at on the daily chart from time to time, that go in from Valentine's Day, Friday to Friday the 13th, going body to body and wick to wick. And we also have this other one here, which was from before, back when we started the channel, in fact, and this comes in from the June 19 highs down to the December 19 lows, and we were kind of drawing the comparison in a sense to say, look, we saw in the past the prices coming up above certain levels. Oh, sorry. Where am I looking here on this one? Yes, exactly, up here towards the 50%, and on the sort of daily time frame and things, we had some opens and closes and whatnot up there, and then we sank back down below that, and that's an area to look to in terms of, always has been in terms of retracements and things like that anyhow. And then bearing in mind as we look towards the current price action, where we can see this 50% coming in here and the 50% coming in here on these two, that this is an area where it could turn around. So we have to sort of bear that in mind. While of course we want to be bullish, and I'm building up overall a sort of fairly bullish picture of things in the face of this downward monthly trend. I mean, let's be honest as well here, that is very much a downward, we've got very much downward sloping price action over the longer period of time here. So, that's the case. So let's try and look and see what mitigates against that or whatever as well. But we've made it up here, so there's another sort of bearish type aspect of things, is that we've done the same as well as we achieved in the past, and so that's why we're going to be taking a look at these key levels now. Why am I bringing up this Fibonacci retracement again, though? That's from there, and I just thought it'd be kind of interesting to point out a couple of little dynamics about the price in terms of where they are in relation to each other. Now, this is kind of, I'm just using the Fibonacci retracement tool here as an analog to kind of show you the relative differential in price movement, and it's just to kind of give a bit of context as opposed to actually, you know, being advocating hugely off of it. Now, if I move this Fibonacci that we had from those highs over there to which was a low before, down to where we have our actual current low going wick to wick, where do we see the 236 coming in at? And the 236 actually comes in at around about the same sort of place as the Valentine's Day to Friday the 13th body to body Fibonacci in there, around about that 6,255 level. And looking at the monthly time frame, then it's fair to say that on a wick to wick basis, we've really we've done quite well to have immediately come back up, so to speak, and never actually having managed to close below this 236 here, and have a valid Fibonacci retracement that we can look to. Indeed, though, we've come up to the 382, which is the first easy to look to retracement area, and turned around at that. So there's a little bit of a dynamic just there as we find ourselves below these other little areas. So, you know, there's a positive from a bigger scope of things. If we were to see a turnaround here, could that be feasible, and how would that work and everything else? Well, you know, we could maybe see the prices go up towards that 8,888 where level 88889, where that Fibonacci is coming in at just now, in the bigger picture of things. And if it were to simply wick up there and come back down and close below these areas here, then of course we would have a lower high on the go as well, so that would continue this overall downward trend. So that's how you can sort of, if you wanted to remain bearish in the big picture in the face of bullish price action, if the prices actually manage to, you know, close a monthly candle in below 9,000, then it's still just a lower high really overall. Ideally, in terms of the bearish scenario, you are looking towards that 8,000 area, and in the lower 8,000s would be better. But of course, you know, anything up there would constitute remaining within this macro trend. So yes, and then final point on this Fibonacci thing is that since that wick is so sort of dominant of this candle, and where the prices then actually have managed to remain since, how about we just look at it in terms of the body to body aspect of it? Now, the bottom of this actually incidentally lines up where these bodies are more or less with where the wick of that December low was, and we kind of knew that in around the time of the price action and whatnot. But just then to bring this right back down again, where does the 236 come in at on this body to body Fibonacci retracement? And you see it's at 7,412, right in around this area of confluence where we have that 18 and the 21 and the 50% retracement area. And we know that, just generally speaking, looking at the prices and how things can go in terms of just generally kind of staying in the middle area of a channel, or so to speak, that we're at a sort of fairly sort of crucial pivot area in the market. So that's good to know, and that's enough of this. I suppose we could look and say, is there any sort of divergence or whatever on the go here just now? And between the lows here on the monthly time frame, as this is a downward trend, there isn't any divergence just there to really be sort of looking at. So we can go on down to the weekly, for instance, and do the same sort of thing if we wanted to. Looking between this low and this low here, and you can see that on the stochastics and the MACD is ever so slightly bullishly divergent, whereas on the others isn't quite. But looking just at in terms of the as a little refresher, then I suppose in terms of the price action and where we could be looking to from a more weekly type perspective, the 618 golden pocket comes in around that 8,000 area as well. So that's something to be looking out for a potential retrace in prices should we get more bullish price action towards the upside and break past this 50% movement retracement area. And of course the 21 on the weekly time frame is coming in there at that 7,589 level as well. So something to be aware of just right there, as well as for potential and the prices turn around. Touch of bullish divergence on the weekly, on two of the oscillators and two of the oscillators as well, there isn't any. And then going on down to the 2-day time frame, I think we could probably just kind of move past this one overall, but other than to say that at this latest high that we've got, should this be a local high, RSI isn't divergent, the stochastics are, the DMI here isn't divergent, although the upward trend is really kind of boiled off, and pardon me, the MACD is what lets that see that's just ever so slightly divergent as well in the classic sense. So, you know, there we go. That's kind of what we're looking at, the 2-day time frame, and the 21, which we do so ever love to go and give hugs and that with, is coming in at that 7,000 area. And 7,000 is going to be something to be taking a look at, keeping an eye out for, I think, as we go further down the timelines and see what's going on here versus other things. Of course, 7,190, where we have the previous 50% retracement at, is an area where we could come in at and sit in and happily sit in a higher low and around that 7,000 area and maintain this overall upward structure, and looking at this touches of divergence, what could happen. It's the same sort of thing though. It's 2 to 1. Overall, I would expect more or less to have a retest of the neutral sort of 50% line here on the RSI as part of this. So we could see things sort of kind of reset slightly as a result of the clicking on the wrong thing there, as a result of that divergence or whatever. Now let's just keep on going as well, because I don't want this dragging on for all day. But on the 24-hour time frame, well, we did well. We managed to come in and sit in a higher high as we were looking for as well, of course, and we remain above the 50 simple moving average, and of course below the 200 simple. But this is overall fair enough. The 200 simple will continue to get downward price pressure from the current price point, while the 50 simple will continue to then get upward price pressure from the current price point, which is what you want to see kind of overall in terms of the future potential of getting a golden cross over here at some point. But of course, then what do we have in terms of divergence? Well, between the highs here, this is just a little bit higher, so it's not divergent. Whereas on the stochastics, it is on the DMI, it isn't. Bearing in mind, of course, so that the trend really has just never really given us anything positive to talk about in terms of strength of trend with the ADX, and we're quite divergent, I suppose, across the last few bits here on the MACD as well as the stochastics. So there's some divergence there to be aware of, and people like to be very FOMO-tastic out there in the market. So when you're looking at these things, and if you do look down to 7,000, then that would have been a full 10% move back down from our previous highs. But how far away from that are we just now? Well, we're not actually that far away from it. And let's just go and go down to the 4-hour time frame, and I'll kind of sum up what we were looking at yesterday in terms of the price action. Well, it was more or less in around this area where the day closed kind of yesterday, when we were talking about it and saying how we'd actually seen a move down the way from the highs at that point already of good solid 2.5%. And should the prices then continue to go down just another couple of percent, really, or indeed the full another 2.5%, you'd have been coming in down here and setting in lower highs overall compared to the previous highs in this area here, which is our previous high to look to, really, compared to this one here, which while it's on the way up to where we are, it was lower than this high, and that's what we're kind of looking at overall on this time frame. The 50 simple is still living above the 200 simple, and that's good in this golden cross scenario. That while the downward price pressure we had over the last couple of weeks really actually hasn't resulted in any sort of big crosses happening over here in the 4-hour time frame to really be too aware of. We can also see this the 21 here, for instance, down here at where or less, if you want to consider this previous high and whatnot, and at that level just now at 7,250, coming in down there would obviously then be that next pivot area, and that's what we kind of have to look to and say, well, that's our next pivot area in the market just there. And then and let's take a look at the divergences across this highs and these ones and see, well, that's not divergent, that's that is just, it is a bit, and the MACD itself, it's not between those two highs there, and then the DMI you can see is way up here, and we have got a positive slant on this here. We have had for quite a while on the 4-hour time frame, which is good, going back a day or so. Right. Anyway, enough of that DMI jazz. So right, okay, so there's a little bit of, so there's not really any divergence on this upward 4-hour trend. That's all good, so we can remain sort of positive in that sense. Looking back the way as well, what's the next sort of target for us in terms of just horizontal lines and whatnot to be aware of? And we can see quite clearly in the 4-hour trend that there was a degree of price action operating in here at the higher 7,000 area as well. So we can see that in on all of this area, we could see resistance happening. So let's try and make a quick summary on it then off the back of all of that sort of different time frame aspect and where we could be going, and we'll kind of do that over here on the 24-hour chart and just kind of assess things real easy now. Could this be a higher high on this overall upward trend? Well, it is, and it's done that. Could we then see a higher low come in, and where the higher low really kind of need to be at for us to be comfortable? And we could say anything around above 6,850, that crucial pivot that we've spoken about in so many episodes over the last month, would actually be a higher high coming coming in here on this trend. We do know that there could be a touch of divergence here occurring on the when looking back to this previous high over here on the daily time frame, looking back to this previous high here in the daily time frame, because if you look between these two bits, there isn't that divergence there. That's just convergent, but that's not really the high. It's actually over here, you know. So and there actually is a little touch of bearish divergence there to be aware of. And overall, we haven't seen the volume really pick up a great deal. However, there is some signs of positive signs as well coming in here, where we have maybe got a little bit of a potential change in behavior coming up soon. Although I'd have to still err on the side of saying that this is just a deviation from the norm, and the norm is still continuing to really remain on an overall downward trajectory just now. So what does that all add up to? And I suppose we can sum this back up by looking back at how we were kind of talking about things in the recent past, with a little sort of triangle on here, and saying, you know, we had this triangle here and we're talking about breakouts from this sort of thing and how that would look. And if you had a big old breakout up here, then it would take you quite a distance away, and we don't really look for that to happen straight away. Instead, we can kind of look to other areas and say, if they don't really actually succeed to live above them, maybe you kind of overall just got more of a fake out than a breakout, and the levels become where you'd be back down at again. So yet again, that 7,200 area becomes important, because that's our downward sloping trend line. And we can see here where we had the exclamation mark, you know, 2 days ago on the chart, that this area is actually still operating quite strongly as a pivot area in the market, where profit taking is occurring in that area at 7,450, and we'll need to see the prices actually maintain themselves above that in order to maintain the bullish stance in the market overall in the shorter time frame. And looking towards sort of daily movements, you could be content with it going all the way down to 7,000. Looking at weekly movements and things, you can see that there hasn't really been a higher low here on the weekly really coming in. And at any point all the way down to as far as 5,000, you could have a higher low come in. That'd be scary. And in terms of the monthly, we know we're so far away from getting higher highs in just yet that it's not, you know, that you'd have to look for big breakouts and things like that to happen, of say that triangle of the full measured move and more. And in terms of lower lows, you know, you've got miles to go down to the low 6,000s, the 5,000s again, if you wanted to create lower lows or higher lows anywhere in there. So there's a big potential range for us. We can still remain fairly sort of cautious and prudent looking forward, instead of getting too overexcited in the bullish stance with the things just now, just as we're looking at this. I think from sort of my initial takeaways, as the price is in this sort of this pivot point with it looking just below 7,450, we need to see the prices remain above that and push on up. And of course, the next profit taking targets for sort of smaller term moves, 7,600 or just below, leave some on the table for the next guy. Don't be too greedy. And after that, then the 8,000 area, we have the 200 simple lat, would all be big turnaround points. And given that it's Friday yet? Friday, let's just take a look and finish off, sum up a bit here by looking at the CME chart, saying, you know, this is this big box up here, but that offers you, you know, a big potential for turnaround in prices, for, you know, to not actually fill the gap, to get close to it. It's all about how the price responds when you get close to it, as opposed to looking at that and saying this is a beacon for where the price is definitely going necessarily in the sort of, you know, in the logistics of the thing. And where the prices so far kind of come up to where we saw previous resistance and and this blue line where we had a previous gap as well on the chart, so that 7,600 area. So if prices closing today, prices opening on Monday above 7,500 or so on the spot prices, 7,600, would create a gap on here in the upside. Do I feel that that's super likely over the weekend? Not necessarily. Equally, the gaps, price action happening to be at where it is more or less just a $50, $100 down from where it is now, of course, would create that gap. Price out at the minute, 7,540. You can see that there's a $100 premium. So if prices were to go to say 7,300 on Sunday night, then you'd have a little gap towards the upside there on those things. So that's kind of what we can look at on that front if you want to be aware of. 7,200 as well, sort of being the next pivot area to be aware of. Should we get to there, 6,850 pivot area, of course, and then things would become fairly bearish after that, looking down potentially towards the low 6,000s, and you're talking multiple 10% moves on the way, so not get too carried away. Now, okay, this episode's gone on for far too long. I broke my structure completely. That was a big mistake, whatever. But I just kind of, you know, I've just looked, this is my first look at the charts today as well, so thanks so much for spending the time with me. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are in the comments down below, and I'm going to start a Discord pretty soon. I've already set it up, I just don't have, you know, any bots or anything in there. I don't really know what the chat is. If you want to see that activated, you know, today, then let me know in the comments as well. And yes, what was I talking about for the 500 subscriber thing? Well, I'm going to do a little I've negotiated with Bybit to get a unique deal for the subscribers here, because like you'll seen as a YouTube TA watching person, that as a Rocky Outcroptician, that there's plenty of people out there on YouTube that offer these Bybit affiliate, you know, rewards, like, and they talked recently about how there's this affiliate page there. I know this rewards program, and you can get $90 of bonuses, and they're all the same though. And I says to Bybit, because they actually got in touch with me, I says, well, no, I wouldn't want to do anything for the channel that wasn't sort of unique, you know, or gave some benefit to this to us, because like I've got too much sort of respect for my audience than to just sort of, you know, just go and take these. I'd have already done that if I thought I really should push it onto you or something. So I'm not going to shill something unless there's a unique benefit to the audience. And they kind of agreed with me there on that front, at least, and were happy enough to offer me two things actually. So I'm going to be doing a unique bonus for people who join up to Bybit through my affiliate link, where if you deposit whatever, I think it's 0.1 or 0.2 Bitcoin, then you get an additional $25 or $50 bonus, which is unique for Rocky Outcrop ticians out there. Not you know, which doesn't exclude you from the other stuff which everybody else would be offering too. So you can also go ahead and claim their $90 of reward bonuses as well. So that's an extra $25 or $50 just for being Rocky Outcroptician, which is sweet. And the second thing is that the first 5 people who actually do that and go through the link will get $10 deposited into their account, just so they can start trading for free without having to have actually deposited anything at all or anything like that, and can get a taster of price action. I thought it would be really cool would be if the community out there kind of let 5 completely new traders, or people who haven't really, you know, got much experience, take advantage of that, because as we know as traders, that when you've spent a lot of time on demo accounts and things like that, it doesn't actually compare to the real thing when there's real money on the table, and that would be real money for people, you know. So 5 accounts that are pre-funded with $10 each from Bybit, and then of course there's the other deal of the additional deposit bonus too, which will be running for the next couple of weeks after I actually start it. So that's the full on explanation of what I'm doing. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks for being a part of the whole growth of this channel and part of the family. I really appreciate it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and let me know what your thoughts are, as I say, on the market that we're looking at. I mean, can we be extremely bullish off the back of this? I think that the time to be bullish was obviously in the previous couple of days, looking at the key levels that we were coming up to, and now that we've seen that happen, is it wise to remain bullish? Well, that kind of smells a bit like FOMO and greed and everything to me right now. If you want to remain like ultra bullish instead, it's better to have your neutral hat on. I think take your foot off the gas for a split second and get some clarity in the market. Of course, if the price does continue to go on up, then great, but that would be a little bit sort of unusual in terms of the formation over here. And given that we don't have sort of massive breakout volume to accompany this candle here, I don't see that accomplishing that. And we can see currently as well off today's price action that we're just remaining within this zone here, which makes me feel like it's less of a triangle, and that was really to be looked at, and it's just more of this overall parallel channel that we've really been in for a while, or indeed perhaps some sort of like wedge type formation that you could maybe get on there, whatever, you know, maybe in a bit better in log, sorry for that, where you could get a bit of a wedge type shape around this instead, you know. And if that's the case, then that leans towards the bearish side anyway, if you want to have that pattern on there. Be a bit more like that, I guess. If you want, you know, that has a downward you know, statistical likelihood of outcome for sort of the rising wedge type thing, you know, so there's that to be aware of. But as well, you know, there was other things you could have always pointed to. There's so many things you could point to any given time on the charts. You know, was this some sort of descending broadening wedge here, which does a continuation pattern, which is overall within the overall structure of the channel? Yeah, it was. Anyway, cool. Let's just catch up tomorrow. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Share this video with a friend of yours. You've got one that you think would like it, by the way, because a friend of yours is a friend of mine. I'm sorry that I let it run on a bit long. It's a longer than normal episode. As a result of that, I think I'll keep the Ethereum chain Chainlink and Tezos videos that I go on to do just now, that little bit shorter. And I think as well Bybit want me to make some sort of tutorial video for them in order to get that sort of thing activated. So if I end up having to go do that later on to sort of activate this promo deal I've negotiated, then I'll do that perhaps. I don't know, leave a little bit for the next guy, and I'll do that with my energy. You do that with your trading. FOMO free, greed free. Catch you next time. Thanks so much.